My first recollection of Geoffrey Boycott was many moons ago. It was at Sheffield. He was a young, bespectacled lad straight out of a civil service office. And he came and blocked a bit, and then he edged a ball from Ozzie Wheatley to Jim Presley's slip, and he was caught. And one never suspected there was talent there. I'd like to know if you saw talent, obviously, in him from an early age.
I remember that dismissal because it was one of the only 2 ducks he got that season. I first saw him playing against Pakistan at Park Avenue. It was a game where he was brought in from the Colts, where he'd just scored 300s. And daft though it sounds, you know what I mean, he scored only 4, but he looked good. And he chopped a ball from outside the off stump onto his wicket. And at the end of the game, Yorkshire were going off to play another game up at Middlesbrough, and he, of course, was returning to the Colts and to league cricket. And I went up to the dressing room for something, and he was the only one in, sitting in a corner, and on the verge of tears. And I said, "What's the matter, lad?" He said, "They've gone and left me, Mr. Mosey, they've gone and left me, but the day will come when they wait for me to take them." And that was the first time I'd ever seen him in the Yorkshire dressing room, and I took note of that, and of course it proved to be absolutely prophetic.
He's always had this contradiction. One minute he is walking around a cricket clubhouse telling everyone what a great player he is and how no one can play without him. And yet at the next moment he is introspective, he is terribly sensitive. And I wonder, Don, if he doesn't have to bolster this rather flimsy inside personality with boasts. You know, he has to persuade himself that he's a fighting player, has to persuade himself he's a world-class player, and therefore tells everybody.
Yes, I think that is very true. In fact, he suffered for the first years of his life, in fact all through his development, from the shadow of Jackie Hampshire. They were both born and brought up in the same area of South Yorkshire. They both got into Yorkshire League cricket. And Jackie got to the Yorkshire Nets first, and he got to Leeds, which was the gateway to the Yorkshire team, first, and he got into the Yorkshire team first. Now, Jack, as you know, was always a handsome stroke player. He was an outgoing personality, lots of friends. Geoffrey, by contrast, was introspective. He was dedicated to the principle that if you don't get out, runs come. And all the time he was making his way in the Yorkshire team, he was having to prove himself in comparison with Jack Hampshire. I don't think this is generally appreciated outside that area. And I've never known it better illustrated than a game at Cardiff, on the old game, the old ground, the Arms Park ground. And Jack that season was opening with Dougie Paget, and it was a beautiful wicket. And I think there'd have been betting yet, but for a great throw from Alan Jones at long leg to the bowler's end, ran one of them out. And Hampshire got over 70, and Boycott was batting number 6. Now, that was one of the games where Yorkshire were crippled by injuries, and I was doing my 12th man act for drinks and tea and the rest of it. And I went round the back of the pavilion to get some tea, and found Boycott wandering up and down, looking absolutely disconsolate. And I said, "What's the matter, lad?" He said, "They all say Jackie Hampshire's a better player than me, and I know he's not. I know he's not. But how can I get any better than him when I'm batting number 6 and he's batting number 1? And I said, "Well, it's a good wicket, and Illy, who was the captain, will be looking for a big score on a declaration. You get your chance." And he went in at number 6, and I think he ended up just behind Hampshire. Now, the wicket had a lot of bounce in it at that time, and for some reason I've never quite worked out, Illy decided that the right form of attack in the Glamorgan second innings was to use Jack Hampshire's leg spinners. Now, this is the only performance in the record book by J.H. Hampshire as a bowler. He took 7 for 52, and it was all over before lunch on the 3rd morning. And as we all set off to Worcester for the next game, Boycott said rather ruefully, "What do I do now? Learn to bowl slow left arm?"
I remember the game well because I wasn't playing. I mean, because it's always nice to be away from debacles like that.
Yes.
But I think that one thing that impressed me first about Geoffrey Boycott was that he was a proper player. I recall we went on tour together with an MCC side to the Far East. It was in 1971, you might recall that. And we turned up at Lord's, and we were told that, look, the baggage restrictions are such on the aircraft that you possibly can't take all your kit. I mean, it's not important. You're going to be playing against Bangkok and Hong Kong and all these missionary places, and we ended up in Seremban and Ipoh. And Geoffrey Boycott said, I'm a proper professional player, and I'll take all my kit with me, or I don't come.
Yes, yes.
Now that rings a bell, doesn't it?
That's absolutely characteristic.
He took all his kit, including a couple of bats.
Yes.
And I put him in first mainly to show the world that we had a fine player and that they should see him bat. But he always got 100.
Yes, that's very true.
And never quite gave it away.
Very true. I had a bet with a Daily Express reporter in Boycott's first season that he would play for England before Jackie Hampshire. Now, much as I like Jack and always have liked him and we're still great friends, I always felt that Boycott was more of a test player than J.H. Hampshire. And I won the bet. I've never got the fiver yet, incidentally. And the following season... And that season I also won £1 from Boycott because he desperately wanted to be picked for England in '64, but daren't allow himself to believe that it was going to happen. So I bet him £1 that he would be in the side for the Trent Bridge Test. And when on the Sunday it was announced, it was in the middle of a Yorkshire game at Leicester, he paid over the £1, and I said, now I'd like that autographing because I don't think in your career a lot of people will get £1 out of you, Geoffrey. So he signed it for me, and the Daily Mail photographic department acquired the £1 note from me to photograph it and use it in the paper, and I've never seen the £1 since.
Well, nothing will surprise me. As his career went on, of course, he accumulated all these marvellous hundreds, and some of them have been quite memorable, I must say. Though I must be fair to John Hampshire. He was very much an inspirational player, John Hampshire, of marvellous attacking, almost impulsive stroke play, but Geoffrey Boycott's shots have been well honed and chiseled. I've almost Pythagoras at work, I felt.
Absolutely.
It's the method has been carefully worked. Away on tour, of course, on a day off when MCC players enjoy lurking around pools and generally enjoying themselves, sightseeing. Geoff was always looking for an army of young boys or hotel waiters or second-hand car washers to bowl him in the nets.
That's right.
Spent his virtuous life in the nets, dedicating himself. I think probably he was one of the full-time professional players and saw himself as nothing else, and he wanted to be the very best.
Yes, I think you've got him summed up completely there, Tony. The first century, incidentally, I remember it as clearly as if I was watching it now. It was a sunny Monday, the 3rd of June, at Bramall Lane, and it was in the Roses match. It always, as you know, had a great sense of occasion, witness Trent Bridge, and this was going to be his first century. He went in at something like 56 for 3, I think it was, and he and Brian Stott each got over 140, Stott 143, and Boycott 145, I think it was. But the thing that I remember most of all was he completed the century with a cover drive off the back foot, not, as you know, the easiest shot to play, and it was off Brian Statham with a new ball. And I thought, well, if you're going to get a maiden century in first-class cricket, that's the grand manner. And he went on to do that illustrious double of a century in each of the Roses match in one season. He got another at Old Trafford, 113 later in the season.
I think we ought to talk about his comeback. I think that his opting out was very much a matter of his principles, mistaken principles as far as I'm concerned, but I think he saw England cricket run weakly from the middle, and he had no regard for Mike Denness as a captain, and obviously he would have expected to have been chosen captain himself in 1973, the winter when they went to West Indies, when Mike Denness was selected, having not been in the current Test side. I think that was his the spark which started many things off.
Yeah.
But his comeback has been equally contrived, I think. I reckon he's conducted his own press campaign to get back. I think it's been laid on with a trowel, and I think he once said to me, the whole thing has been Geoffrey Boycott's initiative, and but who are we to argue when he comes back and does so well?
It started last summer, really, didn't it, with a phone call to Fred Truman, and he went and had a chat to Fred, and then Fred used his Sunday column to start the Bring Back Boycott campaign, because Fred was convinced he'd had a change of heart and change of mind and was now ready to be welcomed back to the fold. But I don't think it's any secret that the selectors have been divided this season, and what must have decided them to bring him back was that the defectors to the Packer Circus were still playing, and if their transgressions were to be forgiven, what case was there for keeping Boycott out any longer?
Well, all I can say, Don, 100 hundreds, and I reckon if he carries on playing, he'll get 100 more.
Oh, yes, no doubt about it. Just one thing, for those people who love figures, I don't know how many times he's scored 165, but it seems to be a magic figure for him. I've seen him score about 565s, and no doubt some statistician will start looking through the books now and see how many times he's scored that. But as you say, there's the capability of another 100, no doubt at all.